You ever felt like something's off in your relationships, but you can't explain why? Like you're giving your all, but still end up drained, confused, or even questioning your worth? What if I told you that a philosopher from the 1800s, Arthur Schopenhauer, exposed a hidden truth about women that most men still ignore, and that truth might be the missing piece in your spiritual journey? This isn't about hate or blame, it's about waking up. About seeing the energetic patterns that play out over and over again in your life. If you're on the path of self-discovery, manifestation, or trying to heal from past wounds, understanding this perspective can help you protect your energy, trust your intuition, and attract the right kind of love. By the end of this video, you'll have a clearer view of the emotional traps many fall into, and even better, how to free yourself from them. So if you've ever asked yourself, why do I keep ending up in the same kind of relationship? Stay with me. This might be exactly what your soul's been trying to show you. Arthur Schopenhauer was not merely a philosopher. He was a mirror held up to life's most uncomfortable truths, a man who stared unflinchingly into the void and dared to speak about what he saw. Born in 1788 in what is now Poland, Schopenhauer is often remembered as the philosopher of pessimism. But that word, pessimism, barely scratches the surface. His was not the despair of a man who gave up, but of one who saw the machinery of life too clearly, without its comforting illusions. For him, existence was governed not by reason, love, or divine harmony, but by a blind, ceaseless, and irrational force he called the will. A hunger that pulls all living things forward, to struggle, to desire, to reproduce, only to suffer again. And yet, what makes Schopenhauer so fascinating, and so difficult to dismiss, is that his critique of life was not cynical for its own sake. It was a yearning for something deeper, something real, something honest. His view of women, too often quoted without context, was not some isolated prejudice. It was woven into this larger tapestry, a man trying to explain why beauty decays, why love deceives, and why even the deepest passion seems to betray us in the end. But here's the quiet truth behind his rage. A man who doesn't understand suffering will always confuse it with truth. So when Schopenhauer wrote about life as torment, was he unveiling reality? Or just his own reflection, cracked and unhealed? Let that question linger. To understand Schopenhauer's harsh words, we must look beyond his philosophy and into the man himself, his wounds, his history, his human story. Arthur's childhood was marked by emotional fracture. His mother, Johanna Schopenhauer, was a celebrated intellectual and socialite, but to Arthur, she was distant, even dismissive. A woman caught in her own ambitions, she offered little warmth or validation to her son's sensitive spirit. Imagine growing up craving connection, only to find the very person meant to nurture you often indifferent. That kind of emptiness seeps deep into the soul. His attempts at romantic connection didn't bring solace either. Schopenhauer experienced loneliness not just as a philosophical idea but as a living, breathing ache. Rejected, misunderstood, and wounded by women who did not, or could not, return his love, his bitterness was forged not from hatred but from a profound ache of unmet longing. It is important to see this distinction. Misogyny is rarely born from hate alone. More often, it is the echo of pain, of desire denied, of the ego bruised and seeking someone to blame. He once said, "We are seldom more cruel than when we are wounded and still trying to appear strong." This sentence holds a spiritual weight that echoes across centuries. The ego, when hurt, lashes out to protect itself, erecting walls of blame. But the soul, if we listen closely, seeks not blame, but healing. Schopenhauer's bitterness is a signpost, not a destination. It asks us, how do we hold our own wounds? Do we armor ourselves in cynicism? Or do we let pain be the doorway to something greater? Pause for a moment. Reflect on your own wounds. How have they shaped your view of love, of trust, of yourself? Schopenhauer's writings on women are often quoted in isolation, fragments that sound harsh, even cruel. He described women as driven primarily by instinct, their intellect limited, their behavior shaped by the biological imperative to secure offspring and manipulate men for survival. He wrote that women possess a certain cunning, a survival-driven nature that makes them fundamentally different from men, a cold, almost clinical observation rooted in the biology of reproduction. For him, women were not villains or heroes. They were expressions of nature's will, performing their roles in the grand, indifferent drama of life. But here is the crucial question. Was Schopenhauer describing women, or revealing his own inability to be vulnerable with them? When we feel unseen, misunderstood, or betrayed, it is easy to paint the other as the problem. Yet, what if this harsh critique was more about the mirror women held up to Schopenhauer's own fears and wounds? Is it really about them, or about the reflection of ourselves we refuse to meet? This is the challenge every man faces in his journey, to see beyond surface judgments and fears, and to ask, what am I really reacting to? The women Schopenhauer describes become symbols, not of female nature alone, but of the struggle within himself, between desire and rejection, hope and despair, connection and isolation. Pause here, and consider the ways your own story might reflect this dance of projection and truth. Fast forward to today. The world has changed, but the echoes of Schopenhauer's pain still reverberate in the hearts of many men. Ghosting, hypergamy, emotional unavailability, the endless maze of dating apps and broken promises, divorce courts that feel like battlefields. These are not just cultural trends, they are modern mirrors reflecting an ancient wound. Many men today feel invisible, used, or easily discarded, especially those who give deeply, who open their hearts fully, only to be met with silence or rejection. Have you ever felt like you gave everything you had, your time, your love, your honesty, and she walked away as if you were nothing? That feeling cuts deep, because it touches a core fear, that love is a game we can't win, that our worth is conditional, and that our pain is meaningless. This is why Schopenhauer's voice still resonates. His despair is not just about women. It is about the heartbreak of the human condition, the suffering that repeats until it teaches us what we refuse to see. So here is the spiritual truth. Suffering is not punishment. It is a teacher. It is a mirror held up so we might finally awaken from the illusions we cling to. So what is your suffering asking you to learn? In recent years, movements like the Red Pill and MGTOW have risen from the shadows of male frustration and confusion. These communities speak harsh truths about female behavior, about self-preservation, and about reclaiming power in a world that feels increasingly uncertain. Their message resonates because it echoes Schopenhauer's despair, a recognition that something is deeply broken in the way men and women relate, in the way love and trust have been fractured. But here lies the paradox. While these groups offer awakening, they can also become ideological prisons. When awareness turns into bitterness, and truth becomes a weapon, the heart closes instead of opens. The spiritual insight here is subtle but vital. Awareness without compassion becomes cynicism. Truth without healing becomes poison. So ask yourself, is your awakening bringing you peace? Or is it simply fueling more anger? Are you building walls to keep pain out, or are you opening doors to understanding and growth? This crisis of male identity is not just a social problem, it is a spiritual crossroads. One path leads to hardened cynicism, the other to deeper healing. Which path are you walking? Schopenhauer, brilliant though he was, never truly healed his wounds. Instead, he intellectualized them, wrapping his pain in dense philosophy and bleak pessimism. He rejected love, not just from others, but from the possibility of transformation it offers. His sharp critiques hardened into armor, protecting him from further hurt but also numbing him spiritually. Pain can be a portal, a doorway to awakening. Or it can become a chain that binds us to bitterness and despair. Schopenhauer chose the chain. Imagine if he had allowed love to crack open his defenses instead of fortifying them. What might have blossomed in that space? Compassion, growth, peace. Many men today walk a similar path, intelligent, insightful, yet spiritually numb. They carry wounds beneath a veneer of strength, unaware that the true power lies in vulnerability and healing. This blind spot, this refusal to be softened by pain, keeps the cycle turning. The invitation is clear. to move beyond intellectualizing suffering and to let it transform us from within. This journey isn't about worshiping or hating women. It's about awakening to a deeper truth within yourself. The feminine is a powerful force, nurturing, chaotic, seductive, mysterious. It holds the power to heal you, or to shatter illusions you've built around love and identity. Instead of fearing this force, there's a call to study it closely, to respect it without illusions, without bitterness or blame. This means mastering your emotions, reclaiming your purpose, and cultivating an inner stillness that no external circumstance can shake. True understanding comes not from control or domination, but from seeing through the illusion that anyone outside yourself can complete you. The awakened man recognizes this. He does not need to dominate women. He sees through the illusion of needing them to complete him. This is a radical freedom. A freedom that arises when the chains of resentment and confusion fall away, revealing the unshakable core of your being. You're not your heartbreak. You're not your rejection. You are not the sum of your failed loves. A conscious man moves beyond the surface of pain and loss. He loves deeply but never loses himself in the process. He recognizes the patterns that keep him stuck and takes accountability for his role in them, not out of shame, but out of a desire to grow. Solitude is not loneliness for him, but a wellspring of peace. Presence is not performance, but a quiet strength. Power is not control, but discernment. The journey inward can be uncomfortable. It asks you to sit with your pain without distraction or blame, to hold your wounds gently, and to find the courage to heal. This is not weakness, it is the true measure of strength. Let this idea rest with you a moment. There is a quiet dignity in the man who no longer needs to be understood by everyone. He has made peace with misunderstanding. He has stopped begging for clarity from those committed to confusion. That, in itself, is a form of liberation. In the silence of solitude, a man begins to hear what the world drowned out, his own intuition. The voice that says, "You were not born to chase approval. You were born to awaken to something timeless inside you." This is not about becoming untouchable. It's about becoming whole. Letting heartbreak teach you boundaries. Letting loss teach you value. Letting love, even if it was painful, teach you to never abandon yourself again. Healing is not a return to who you were. It's the birth of who you were meant to be, after everything has fallen away. When you stop reaching outward to be completed, you realize you were never broken, only buried under layers of survival and false stories. When a man finally meets himself, stripped of resentment, ego, and illusions, he doesn't just find peace. He becomes it. Sometimes the hardest thing a man will ever do is choose not to harden, to keep his heart open in a world that taught him to shut it down. But in that quiet choice, to feel, to stay conscious, to rise above reaction, he becomes something rare, a man who suffers but does not become his suffering. Healing is not a destination, but a daily practice, a commitment to show up for yourself even when it feels easier to turn away. Each moment of awareness is a small victory in reclaiming your true self. True strength is not measured by how much you can endure silently, but by how bravely you can face your own shadows and bring them into the light. It's in the willingness to be vulnerable that real power is born. The journey inward often feels like walking through a dense forest without a map, unsure of what lies ahead. But each step you take in self-awareness clears a path, revealing a landscape of peace and possibility that was always within reach. Remember, transformation doesn't happen overnight. It unfolds like a slow sunrise, sometimes hidden behind clouds, but always moving toward light. Trust the process, and trust yourself to rise. There's a quiet question beneath all the noise. Are you bitter, or are you broken and afraid to say it out loud? Is your philosophy a shield to protect your wounds, or a true path to understanding? Imagine what Schopenhauer might have written if, instead of retreating into despair, he had chosen to heal. The truth about women won't save you, but the truth about yourself might. If this reflection touched something in you, whether pain, hope, or curiosity, know that you're not alone on this path. I invite you to share your thoughts, your struggles, your awakenings in the comments below. This is a space for honesty, not hate. If you found value in this journey, please like and subscribe. Together, we can explore deeper truths and build a community grounded in awareness and compassion. Thank you for listening, and may your journey toward healing continue with courage and grace.